Awesome. So, ladies, as promised, you are going to get to hear a story because I think during our seasons of singlehood, it's very encouraging to get to hear people's stories, that just help to encourage us and to bring hope and trust and just to hear other people's perspectives who have walked through those seasons that many of us are in right now. So I want to introduce you to Betsy Vallee. Did I say that right?
Well, good.
And she has just been a lovely one that I've gotten to meet really through her ministry. And she's become a friend, and I'm excited for you guys to just get here to hear her story. She got married later than she had planned or anticipated, and just seeing what the Lord has done through her yes to Him and through her story is just beautiful. So let's go ahead and start. Beth, would you just tell us a little bit about you, a little bit about who you are, where you're from?
Sure. Yep. I grew up Catholic and I just always thought marriage was my vocation and I was going to have 3 to 4 children. And I went to Catholic college and I just thought it was all going to play out and, um, just fall into place the way we always think it will. And things didn't happen like that for me. My parents were married for 60 years, and so that gave me a really solid foundation of what I thought marriage was, and I thought it just happened. And so I was waiting and waiting and waiting, and different obstacles came up, and they really affected me. And I think there's different obstacles for different people, and you're not expecting them is
Mm,
the thing. And when they come up, sometimes you don't know how, if they throw you off your path, you don't expect it. You don't know how to get back on your path.
yeah.
I always went to church. So that's one constant that never ceased. And I actually was very involved with young adult ministry. And I would see people around me meeting each other and marrying. And I'd go to all the weddings and people would start having their babies. And then, by the time I was in my 30s, I just felt lonelier and more separated from my friends. And I actually allowed a lot of friendships to wither, which made me
Mhm.
more sad. And I
Yeah.
hanging out with people that were perpetually single, and then,
Mhm.
even still going to church. And I stayed away from confession. And then I had what I call my spiritual rock bottom, where I just knew that I still wanted to be married and I just wanted that for myself. And I finally surrendered to God. And I was 42 or 43. And I had just gotten so tired of where I was at and waiting and waiting and waiting
Mhm.
and not understanding why relationships didn't pan out for me and
Yeah.
staying too long in the relationship after I knew that
Yeah.
that person wasn't the one, but they're so nice and they make me laugh and oh, they're so good and they're a good person.
Mhm.
So yeah, so I just kind of I came to the end of my rope and I went to confession and I did a full confession and the priest was just so wonderful. When I was done, I got up to leave and he said, "No, where are you going? Do you have a plan? Your whole life is going to change," because he knew I was repenting. He knew I was done. And yeah, so he said, "Do you have a plan?" And so he talked to me. There was a long line of confessors, and he talked to me for a long time about what I should be doing and what my next steps should be.
Wow. That is a wise priest.
Yes. And I actually met my husband 6 months later, and we were engaged 9 months after that. It was amazing.
Wow. Oh my goodness, it's so beautiful. Now, tell us, so there's so many questions that I want to ask in this. So, number one, how would you say, Well, first of all, why don't you go and tell us how you met your husband first? Okay. A little bit about that story, if that's okay.
Yeah.
And then let's dive a little bit into during that season of singlehood. And I want us to just dig into that a little bit. So,
Okay. Okay.
mhm.
So this all happened. My confession happened in August, and I just started making small changes. Stopped drinking soda, that kind of thing. Got healthy, went to bed earlier, and then it was December and January and February, and
Mm.
my head kept saying, Catholic dating site. And I was like, no way. That's what got me in all this
Right.
trouble
Yeah.
anyways. Right. And I'm like, no, that has to be the devil. That's not right. That's like, I am not doing that, because I had told God, like after my confession, I had said, I give myself to you. I will listen to you. And I think that's a big thing, is that I really started listening. And
Mm.
that's what I heard. And so finally, I think it was March. It was mid-March. I remember it was about St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah.
I finally signed up for CatholicMatch.com,
Mm.
and I met my husband the following month. And he we each owned a home, and we each owned a home 10 minutes away from each other. And we grew up in the same parish, and
Mm.
we knew a lot of the same people. He's 2 years younger than me. So the person I had dated in high school, all of that person's friends, my husband was friends with their younger siblings.
Oh my gosh, that's wild.
His sister-in-law was my best friend from high school, was on his sister-in-law's Christmas list. I mean, it was crazy. Yeah. And back in the day, somebody would say, "Oh, you should meet, you should meet Lance,
Right.
or you should meet Betsy." They'd connect you, but they don't today. So,
Yes.
right, right. So,
Wow. And how has that been? Because one of the things that I've heard some of the women that have just shared their hearts with some, that say, I'm worried that when I do meet that person, that I'm just going to be angry that this time was lost. That like I didn't meet him here, there. What would you say to that? What was your experience with that?
I had some anger, because we did try to start a family,
Yeah.
and that wasn't successful for us. We have we have two puppy dogs now. I
Yeah.
have a chocolate lab and a black lab. And so there was some sadness to that. But on the flip side, I always wanted children, and Lance always wanted children.
Mhm.
But if I'm honest with myself, I'm not sure that that is my calling.
Mm.
I was there for my dad 13 years ago when he was sick and passed away. And my mom's 93 now, and I'm there for her now. And I'm
Wow.
almost wondering if, the thing that we think we're supposed to be doing is not always
Mm.
what is intended for us.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I had, even when I gave my heart and my soul over to God, I said, if you want me to be a nun, you better be very loud, because I had even thought of that. Like there were different things in my life when I said, okay, like, oh, it would be so much simpler if
Mhm.
had a calling to that vocation,
Right.
and I can
Mm.
put this spirit of wanting to be married to rest.
Right.
And I just never got that calling.
Yeah.
So yeah, there was, there are sometimes, and I think his siblings and our in-laws are even, that we don't have children to be cousins to their children,
Yeah.
and they're like, oh, you guys would have been the best parents. And
Mhm.
I hear that more often with other people, and
Mhm.
you
Yeah.
just have to, I'm just glad that I have someone to share, all
Mhm.
age of, really.
Yes. So tell us a little bit about that. What has that been like looking back, and how did God use that season of singleness to prepare you to have a beautiful marriage?
I learned patience,
Mhm.
and um, I really am. I'm one of those people that I'm a late bloomer. I always have been a late bloomer. And I think I needed that time
Mm,
to really mature.
mm,
And I can't speak for my husband, but I think I needed that time. I'm not sure that I would have been successful
yeah.
in a marriage. And when I got to be, I can't remember what age it was, but there was, I think when I got to be in my 30s, my mom and I would joke that I was just not having my first marriage. I was going to go right to my second marriage, because everybody, the divorce rate is so high, and I just was not going to settle,
Mm,
and yeah, so.
mm. Well, what would you say to those who are single right now? And what would you say about even just going through like their own healing journey prior to marriage and how that's important, and
Yeah.
how that comes into play? What would you say to those ladies?
Well, I think there was a lot of time that I wasted waiting,
Yes.
waiting. I seriously was just sometimes sitting there waiting. There were years that I didn't date.
Yeah.
A lot of years, a ton of years I didn't date, and I was waiting. And I was going and I was doing my volunteer activities, and I was out in the world and I was working. Um, but I think one thing that I wish I had done was discovered really who I was. I thought I knew who I was, but now that I'm older, I realize that I didn't take that time
Mm,
judiciously and really found out who I was. Um, and what kind of relationship I wanted to have. You know,
mm,
I
mhm.
thought, like I said before, I thought it all fell into place.
Yeah.
And I knew, like, I had made those lists of, the attributes I wanted my husband to have. And I think you need to become the woman that that person would marry.
Yes. Yes.
And I needed to know what kind of relationship, and not when I found myself in a relationship that isn't what I would want in a marriage, to get out. I would be interested to know how many women who are married knew, like how quick they knew that that was their husband. I knew pretty quick after being,
Mm,
40. I think I was 40. I was 45 turning 46 soon after I met my husband,
mhm,
and I got married at 48.
mhm.
And after being single all those years, I mean, I was scared, but I knew. And I'm like, how can I be sure now?
Mm,
After
mhm.
all those years of not being sure. So I think if you know what kind of person you're looking for,
Yeah.
and if you don't know, like if that's not your background,
Yeah.
then surround yourself with a family that is their background.
Mm,
Find a girlfriend whose husband treats her like a gem, and just learn what that's all about, and only accept that.
yeah.
Don't settle for less.
Mm. I think that's so important. Just having mentor couples, couples who you can learn from and who you respect and see, oh, I love the way that they do, the way that they are in their marriage. I love the way that he treats her. I love the way that she loves him, and vice versa. And what would you say, looking back, if you had known that God did have someone for you and it was going to be such a joyful experience and just such a gift, how would you have lived that time differently?
That is the saddest part. I would have just, I would have gladly waited. I would have waited with joy. I
Mhm.
would have used that time to really, I probably, had more time to help other people.
Yeah.
Like if I had known, like, okay, you're 25 and you'll meet him at 45,
Mhm.
then I would know, like, okay, I have all this time.
Right. So you
let's,
really would have dove into
let's
life.
fill it with stuff. Exactly. An
Yeah.
entire life. Let's fill it with stuff.
Yeah.
And I think we all try to do that, and we all do our volunteer and our charity and this and that, but you're always waiting.
The waiting
Oh,
aspect. Yeah.
God. Yeah.
One of the things that a lot of conversations I've been having with with women and some of the coaching that I do, we've been talking about a lot about this concept that, where our thought life goes really impacts the way that we live each part of our life, each season.
Mhm.
And one thing that I think become more and more convinced of is the importance of diving into our life right here and right now, and living your life with the hope, if you really desire marriage and you feel like you're called to that, trusting that, okay, God's going to fulfill that. I don't know how, when, or where, or what that's going to look like, but holding on to that hope, right? Because when we're hopeful, we actually show up in life totally different, versus when we're hopeless. And trusting that we do have a good father and he does know what is going to bring joy to our lives, and that right here and now we can also be living a life of joy and beauty. And yeah, it's different than the other, but we can also live wholeheartedly right here, right now. And it's funny because I think that's the one thing, talking with a lot of women now who are married now. And one of the things a lot of them have said is they're like, I would have just dove into life. I would have used that time instead of waiting. I would have lived.
Exactly. Exactly. Because when you know your vocation or you want your vocation to be marriage,
Yes.
you feel like you're not living.
Yeah.
You're just going to work, you're going to church, you're going, but you're not sharing your life with somebody the way you want to.
Yeah.
You almost don't want to go on vacation because you don't want to do that without your husband, share it with them.
Right.
Yeah. And one thing I think if I had actually developed a relationship with God, which is more than praying,
Yes.
I would have listened more. If you develop those listening habits, I know I do spiritual exercises with St. Ignatius. That's a lot of listening things, and Lectio Divino. And if I developed that younger, I think I maybe would have even felt more patience and more solitude that it was going to happen.
Yes.
I wrote down a note, maybe if I had connected with my guardian angel, and just known that that was going to happen. One thing I did feel during those years was the fact that I was not joyful. And I did worry that what I was putting out in the world was preventing that vocation to happen.
And that is something that I really believe actually can be a really huge, beautiful shift that as women we do have control over, right? Like there's a lot of things we don't have control over, in circumstances, but we do get to control our thoughts, which impact the way that we feel, which then impacts the way that we show up in life. Like a woman who is living her mission, whatever God's calling her to in that time, maybe it is an orphanage in Africa, or maybe it is, maybe it's just a very simple working at a nursing home, or, a nurse, or whatever, even in the simplicity of that, to be, and fostering friendships with girlfriends and even with families, and babysitting and just entering into life fully. That's so attractive, when you're living a full life, and creates space to also to be able to invite a man into that. And I think so many times in talking with quite a few of my married friends, that's something that they've actually talked quite a bit about is, it makes such a difference in some of the things that they've learned just from their husbands, the way that as women, that way that we show up. And so many women go bitter, when it doesn't happen when we want it, how we want it, the way we think. And I mean, honestly, even for Chris, Kara, and I, like, our ministry got started because of, we're like, well, we all really feel called to marriage and we want to be wives and moms, but right now this is where we are. So Lord, how can we serve you here and now? And we joked that instead of getting cats, we did a ministry instead. And I don't know if it's more or less work than cats, but but just using that time well, and diving into that. What is one maybe last piece of advice that you would give a woman out there who she really does feel called to marriage and she just wants to give up? What would you say to her to just give her some hope or give her some encouragement?
I would say that you need to be an active participant, and that, God is good and He is going to guide us, and to be gentle with yourself, to be forgiving, just like we're all sinful people, we're going to fall down.
Yeah.
I remember one time, um, my girlfriend from college, she was complaining about her husband, coming home and walking the dog and not helping her take care of her three children. And I would get so angry with that. I remember a guy I was date with asked me if I wanted children. And I said, well, as long as the guy would help me with them, like I would say stupid things like that, and we're going to go through different parts. It's not a race, you
Yeah.
know, um, it's different for every person. And just to be patient with yourself and forgiving, and just know that, God is there to pick us up and He's going to forgive us. And there's always a new day, and you can always change your mindset.
I love that. Well, if people would like to just get in touch with you, maybe hear a little bit more about your story, or just they need a little bit of encouragement, can they find you on social
Yeah.
media, or what's the best way to reach
Yeah.
you?
Betsy Vallee. I'm sorry. Gowell is my maiden name. Sometimes it still blurts out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Betsy Vallee on Facebook is fine.
Awesome. And that is BetsyVallee. I need to
Correct.
just find her on there. And again, you guys, thank you for just listening. And for all of you ladies out there who are single and who desire to be married, don't give up hope. Hold on to that dream, hands open wide like Our Lady in that fiat position, but live your life, but still dive into life right now. Keep that open space, keep that joy, keep that hope alive, and come follow us on social media and find us. We are on Facebook at Be His Own. We are on Instagram, uh, Twitter, Be His Own Music, and our website is BeHisOwn.com. So come find us, follow us, ask questions, and we're just grateful for you guys. We're keeping you in our prayers. Pray for us. Betsy, thank you again so much for being with us today.
Oh, you're welcome. God bless.
Bye.